Joining me now is Frank Luntz, a political strategist and pollster and author of Words That Work. It's not what you say, it's what people hear. Frank, I'm so glad we have you because you understand the pulse of the Republican Party and Americans broadly. So real talk, let's get to it. Did any minds change after Thursday night's hearing?
Well, here's the problem and the challenge, quite frankly. That video, that 9-minute video, was mind-blowing. I myself have seen all the footage up to this point, was shocked at how brutal January 6th was. And if you watch that video, you cannot help but believe that something incredibly horrible happened and that people should be held accountable. Here's the problem. That video did not start until 30 minutes into those hearings. The first 6 or 7 minutes was from the chairman delivering a relatively boring presentation. The next 20 minutes was interspersed with a bit of video. But quite frankly, a lot of people who tuned in to see the action, tuned in to get the truth, probably weren't watching. The key in this, and whether this is going to be impactful, and you can see the video right in front of you right now, the key in this is, do we ask the question? Do they say, why did this happen? What was the cause? Do they deliver statements? Do they deliver declarations? The way that you reach independent voters, and those are the ones who are targeted by these hearings, is by asking questions and let the viewer themselves come up with the answer. So my conclusion for you is it may have had an impact, but not nearly as much as it could have been.
And Frank, you said the audience was, in your assessment, for independent voters. I know you've spoken at times emotionally about how divisive America has become. What needs to happen to move the dial on extreme Trump supporters? Do you think they were even watching?
No, I don't believe that they were watching. And Fox got its typical rating on a Thursday night. They didn't do better. They didn't do worse. They average about 3 million viewers. And frankly, to put this into perspective, Joe Biden's State of the Union address got 38 million people watching, and this only got 20 million. So the people who they want to reach did not tune in. And if they did, they probably weren't watching at the moment that the video came on. So the only way that they're going to make a difference here, quite frankly, is not what they say, it's what they show. I know it sounds similar to it's not what you say, it's what people hear. The fact is it's also what people see. It's the video that makes a difference. And if they see the video, they could come to a different conclusion. But unless they see that video, they won't.
And to that point, right, that video was chilling and the emotion in the room was so raw. I know you watched Thursday night's hearing with some of your students. And given your observations on their reactions in real time, what does the committee need to do in the future? And what should they absolutely avoid repeating if they're going to reach that audience you're talking about?
That is a great question. I got two pieces of advice. Number one is the politicians need to step off center stage. I know that they think that the hearings are about them. The truth is it has nothing to do with them and everything to do with what happened 18 months ago. That's number one. And number two, that video, that 9 minutes needs to be a part of every aspect. Simply ask the question, why did this happen? And if the whole hearings, if the next 5 hearings are all about answering that question and how do we prevent it from happening, then you'll get an impact. But unfortunately, politicians do what politicians do. Speak less, show more.
And Frank, what do you think? We talked about those extreme Trump reporters or those who still believe in the big lie. Is there anything that they need to hear in these hearings to change their view, or do you think that's a lost cause?
They're not going to change. And there are people who are hostile to Trump, and they're not going to hear anything either. Both left and right have made up their minds. The question and the battle right now is for the center of America. And who controls the heart, mind, and soul of those people controls the midterm elections. It controls 2024. If we are to do something positive out of this negative, we'll seek to reach those people who can be reached. We'll show them the evidence, show them the facts. And by the way, something else that did not happen, there was no counter-narrative. There was no cross-examination. If you actually want Trump voters to watch, they need to know that there's someone on their side who's going to be saying, wait a minute, that is not, you're only seeing part of the picture or you're not getting a full picture. None of that was in evidence. We have to open our minds. We have to show people what the evidence is. And you actually do need to represent a Trump perspective if you want Trump voters to pay attention.
Important perspectives. Frank Luntz, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's an honor.